Good evening, Elmsford residents. Welcome to tonight's virtual candidate forum with Matt Evans, candidate for mayor of the village of Elmsford. My name is Thatcher Hart, and I will be serving as your moderator for this evening's discussion. As a colleague of Matt's from graduate school, I'm honored to facilitate this important conversation between a candidate and the community who hopes to serve. Before we begin, I'd like to provide some context for tonight's forum. The League of Women's Voters of the River Towns had originally planned to host a debate between all candidates for mayor. Unfortunately, Matt's opponent, incumbent Mayor Robert Williams, declined that invitation, stating, "Thank you for the invitation to participate in a debate with my opponent. Unfortunately, I am currently quite busy with other income commitments, so I will be unable to participate in the debate." Per league rules and their policy of nonpartisanship, a candidate meeting with only one candidate present is not allowed. Rather than let this opportunity for community engagement pass, Matt organized this virtual forum to ensure Elmsford residents still have a chance to hear directly from at least one candidate about the issues that matter most to you. The questions I'll be asking tonight come directly from Elmsford residents who submitted them ahead of time. For those of you who may not be familiar with Matt Evans, he is a fourth generation Elmsfordian who has served as village trustee since 2020. Prior to that, he has served 3 terms on Elmsford Board of Education, including as president. Matt works as a nonprofit director focused on community partnership and holds a master's degree in public administration and policy. Our format tonight will be a conversational. I'll pose questions to Matt, and he'll have the opportunity to respond fully. We'll cover a range of topics, including taxes and fiscal responsibility, transparency in government, youth and senior programming, housing, support for emergency services, flooding issues, business development, and infrastructure improvements, all based on your questions submitted. We've scheduled 1 hour for this forum, and we'll do our best to address as many of your questions as possible in that time. While this isn't a traditional debate, it is an important opportunity for voters to hear Matt's vision for Elmsford's future and how he plans to address the challenges facing the village. Now we'll begin with our first question. Questions have been raised about your education and work history, about whether or not you have had a real job. Can you please clarify this and explain why you think you are more qualified to do the job of mayor over someone who has been doing this job for 22 years? Matt?
Thank you, Thatcher. First off, I just want to thank you for being willing to moderate this forum this evening. It means a lot for your willingness, so thank you. And I'm glad that Elmsfordians, get to meet a very, very dear and close friend of mine. So thank you. I have also heard these questions about, I guess, my background and my qualifications for this job. So I welcome the opportunity to be able to talk about that. So I have a very vast work history. I have worked in the public sector, the private sector, and the nonprofit sector. I began as a Family Court Assistance Program AWOL specialist. The Family Court Assistance Program in Westchester is their non-secure juvenile detention center. When I worked there, I was responsible for, again, representing the agency in court and reducing youth AWOLs from the facility. I had the opportunity to begin to work in the classroom as a teacher aide in the Garrison School District in Putnam County. And then from there, I transitioned to being a teaching assistant, looking to get more into the instructional side as a teaching assistant in the Peekskill City School District. In both of those stops, however, I had an opportunity to really dive deep, not only into what my job was, but my job responsibilities beyond that. So, for example, in the Garrison Union Free School District, I had the privilege of leading the development of their social emotional learning program. So along with my colleagues chairing that committee, we were successfully able to implement a robust social emotional program in the Garrison Union Free School District that allowed for us to actually present on the results of the program in which we implemented at what was at that point considered SOCON. It was the Student Outcomes Conference of Southern Westchester. So we were very honored to do that. And then as I transitioned to the Peekskill City School District, I had the privilege of helping to lead the efforts to establish their My Brother's Keeper mentoring program, which contributed to seeing an increased rate of student attendance there. I was able to take all of that experience, in addition to having been a camp director here in the village of Elmsford for 10 plus years, under the tutelage of Chrissy Kramer, who was my first boss, and she'll always have the title of boss. I was able to take all of that experience, and become a community school director at PS 171Q, in Astoria, Long Island City. It was there, Thatcher, that I really had the opportunity to see what can happen when there is a collective role in impacting the community. So it wasn't working in Long Island City in the Astoria area. It wasn't just the school district's job to help uplift the community. It wasn't just, the government's job, and everyone was working together collaboratively to help everyone rise. And getting that keen understanding of what that can look like is really a lot of what I want to see on the ground here in Elmsford, is a collective impact approach to development, to sustainability, to progress for every resident that lives here. From there, I transitioned into the private sector for a little bit. I became the director of client relations for a tutoring and test prep company, um, where I was responsible for managing a six-figure caseload of families, and ensuring that their needs and services were met as they were looking to progress educationally. I missed doing meaningful and passion work. So I transitioned back into the nonprofit sector, and I've had the honor since June of being the community partnership director for the Poughkeepsie Children's Cabinet, which is the backbone organization in the city of Poughkeepsie, working with their out-of-school time providers and their early childhood education providers, really to end intergenerational poverty, and stop that cycle, by really increasing educational outcomes and really providing services to students and families. So that is pretty much the work journey that I've had, and along that road, I was able to attend Empire State College and receive a Bachelor of Arts in Human Development. And then, as you know, because we we did it together, I received my master's in Public Administration and Policy from American University, and am a member of Pi Alpha Alpha, which is the Global Honor Society for Public Administration, Policy, and Affairs. So when somebody asks, why do I think I'm more qualified to do the job of someone that's been doing it for 22 years? The short answer of it is, just because you've been doing it doesn't mean you've been doing it well. And we can't just look at longevity as an example of effectiveness. And the fact of the matter is, what I have witnessed over the last 4 years, being intimately involved, since 2020, really, as we approach year five, what I have witnessed is not a functional government. What I have witnessed is not an individual who is focused on the day-to-day needs and concerns of the people of this village. Thatcher, I did not take this run lightly. Let me make that very clear. I did not take running literally against someone who appointed me to the board, mind you. Okay. I didn't take that lightly. So why did I do it? I did it because this is home. This has been my home my entire life. 4 generations of my family have lived and grown in this community. And I could not sit idly by and watch my home get left behind. We have to look ourselves in the mirror and ask ourselves, out of the 6 villages in Greenberg, why are we being left behind? Why are they progressing in ways that we are not? Why do we not have the services and the opportunities that they do? And I don't want to hear the excuse about, well, their socioeconomic, range is high. I don't want to hear that. Those are excuses, because people need to see their tax dollars working for them. And right now they're not. And I understand that some have grown an affinity over to one individual over all of these years, but ask yourself this: is this the best we can do? I argue no, and that is why I made the decision that I did. And that is why I have laid out very clear, concrete plans which some have said are budget busting, but I argue find one thing in any of my plans that is more about how much it's going to cost as opposed to how hard are you willing to work to make it happen. So those are basically my qualifications to do this job, Thatcher.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that background, Matt. I'm sure that's extremely helpful for those that don't know you. Um, the second question that we have tonight is someone has read the Don't Trust Trustee Matt, and that you are saying false things about the mayor to score cheap political points. What is or isn't true with this thing that they're talking about?
So I can explain to you what they're talking about. So the mayor has, in fact, attempted to cash out vacation days that he did not have to the tune of not $30,000, to the tune of over $40,000. Thatcher, that's not me saying that, right? So they're saying don't trust him, he's out here lying. I'm not saying this. Every single thing that I cite is verifiable and Googleable. Not me saying it. I'm not making these things up out of thin air. In fact, Thatcher, we will be, letting people know, but we have the clear evidence that the claims that are being made about it was some clerical error, financial error is false. It's false, Thatcher. The mayor literally approved his own cash out of those vacation days. It's his signature. So trying to blame someone else for taking over $40,000 of taxpayer money is wrong. And then we hear the excuse, well, he paid it back. He shouldn't have taken it. That's wrong. And would he have paid it back if he didn't get called out on it? Thatcher, this is not me. These are articles written in the Journal News. I'm not the one who decided to come up with a story about the mayor demanding personal loyalty to him. That's not me. That's his own words of an audio recording of him. I'm not coming up with these things. The list goes on and on and on. It has been 4 years of headline after headline after headline. When does it stop? When do we get back to the front page of the newspaper for the right reasons? When do we get back to the front page of the newspaper not for, using the Elmsford Police Department as your own personal security? The county executive of Westchester County doesn't have security, Thatcher. But the mayor of a 1 square mile village did? It's unconscionable. So when we say don't trust me, what they're really saying is don't call me out on my mess. So look, if people don't want to believe me, that's all well and good. That's fine. You can go to mattforelmsford.com and you can click on the tab that says Mayor Williams' True Record. You don't have to believe me. Read the articles yourself. And after you read those articles, if you come to the conclusion that this is the character that you want as the chief executive of your village, then by all means, that's your guy. But if you read that and say to yourself, this isn't right, if you read that and you say to yourself, we deserve better, then this is the campaign that you come join. Because I have a full ethics package. We will have an ethics board in this village. We will have financial disclosures in this village, conflicts of interest in this village. You will know my daily schedule every single day posted online. You will know that I am working for you. I challenge my opponent to do the same. I guarantee you that will not happen. Guarantee you. So what is or isn't true? Google it yourself, come to that conclusion. But I believe I've earned the trust of many people in this community, having served at this point for over a decade. The majority of almost all of my adult life has been spent in service to this community. I think I've earned the trust of many here.
Wonderful. So, on the topic of tax rates and tax dollars, you correctly pointed out Elmsford has the highest tax rate out of the 6 Greenberg villages per $1,000. This resident's question is that you have been on the board and oversaw 4 years of increases. What is your plan to lower our taxes in Elmsford to help young, growing families, older families looking to enjoy their golden years, and small businesses not only coming to the village, but to stay in the village? What's your plan for that, man?
Yeah. So first and foremost, when I pointed that out about the tax rates that Elmsford has in comparison to Greenberg villages, it wasn't my point to attempt to say, well, no, I had nothing to do with it. It was my attempt to make the public aware. My opponent was saying that he has overseen the lowering of tax rates. My response to that was, where? Where? Don't claim to do something that you haven't done, right? So for me, I understand the concern about our village having that high tax rate, but I've consistently pushed for financial responsibility. One of the things Mr. Williams is hammering me on is that I voted against the budget. And the fact of the matter is that was because I wasn't provided with the proper information to be able to actually vote in favor of that budget. There was information that was needed in order for me to make an informed decision that I didn't have. Here's what I can promise you. I will promise that your tax dollars will be spent prudently. I will promise you that you will see your tax dollars at work. I'll give you an example of what we mean by prudence. I'm a believer in zero-based budget, right? Every expense has to be justified rather than automatically carrying it over year after year, right? If we budget, because we need gumballs and, that made your line item, Thatcher, was $15 because we needed gumballs. Next year, Thatcher, your budget's not just going to go from $15 to $20. You already got your gumballs. We're going to start at zero and let's justify whatever expenses those are. We cannot just keep rolling over and over and over. We've got to start identifying wasteful spending, and we're not leveraging technology in this village enough. And that is a way to reduce administrative costs. And at the same time, I believe in more opinions, not less. There needs to be a citizen budget committee. They need to be providing input on spending priorities because it is their government. It should not just be the board of trustees and the department heads in a room making these determinations. And never once before that did any member of the public have a say. And unlike Mr. Williams, I'm going to conduct annual independent financial audits. Where are they going to be published? Online, department by department breakdown. Because transparency is essential. And when residents can see where their money goes, that's how we collaboratively make better decisions. So when we're talking about expanding that tax base, because that's really kind of also what I'm hearing when we're talking about that tax rate, we've got to start focusing on smart economic development. We've got to start focusing on more businesses because it means more commercial taxes, but we cannot just be focused on the big businesses. And hopefully I'll have an opportunity to talk a little bit more about my plans for small businesses. But I will pursue federal and state grants aggressively. That is my background professionally, is I'm involved in substantial amounts of grant writing. Through my role also on the Westchester County Youth Advisory Board, I have the opportunity to also see additional ways in which grants are applied for. I review the grants in addition with my board colleagues. There is money out there. But we do not have a chief executive right now who has any experience in grant writing. No experience whatsoever in grant writing. So we're missing opportunities here because this community has a full-time mayor who doesn't have the background to do things that you need to be doing full-time. So for all of those who, question my work background, well, my work background is what's going to allow for us to open ourselves up to additional funding. So I don't think it's about making drastic cuts. I think it's about spending smarter and ensuring that every tax dollar works efficiently for Elmsford residents.
Great.
Um,
Moving on. Yes.
do you want to take a question? I can.
Oh, do we have a question? Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's
So we've
take a
got.
look here. Yeah.
Hi, Bellamy.
Oh, hi, Matt.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. My question is a program that I've been involved at work, which is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with, which is the New York State Plus One ADU program.
Hmm.
Um, if you don't know, don't have any background on it, well, it's a New York State that provides funding to support homeowners to add accessory dwelling units to existing properties. I was trying to see if you would support this initiative if elected.
Yeah. So, Bellamy, I'm really glad that you brought that up. Honestly, it's something that we need to actually be open to studying. So when this came before the board, unfortunately, the majority of my colleagues kind of shut down any exploration of it. I didn't fully agree with that approach. Um, I think we need to face the fact that we do have a shortage in housing, not just
Yeah.
in Elmsford, but also throughout the state and throughout the country. And I think one of the ways in which we can address that is through accessory dwelling units. We have to make sure that we do it smartly, though. And I think beginning to see how other municipalities have begun to roll this out and trying to, oh, there goes the sign. That went down. Beginning to see how other municipalities are rolling that out, it's something that we can begin to learn from. I think, Bellamy, we would need to study this. I wouldn't want to jump right into it without making
Mhm.
sure exactly what would that look like for Elmsford and making sure that we do it in a way that fits. But it is 1000% something that I'm open to. It's something that I'm passionate about. Um, and hopefully that's something that you're willing, as a resident to help us lead the charge on when we're, beginning that exploration and getting additional resident feedback as well as doing our research.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely something interesting. I I actually work for an architectural firm, so we've seen a couple of towns and villages implemented, which has worked effectively.
Yes.
And it also helps for, like aging in place now that of housing is so expensive, especially for like the younger generation. So,
Yeah, and I think, and Bellamy, honestly, I think having somebody like you, helping us with this is crucial because I know a lot of the concerns that, residents have brought forward, has to do with, do we have enough parking?
yeah,
Things like that, and where we already have, overcrowding, and part of what I tried to help my colleagues on the board understand as well as other residents who've expressed concerns is that accessory dwelling units are actually a way in which you're able to address the overcrowding as opposed to it being something that would actually equate to overcrowding. So I really think that you would be a crucial part in helping us with that messaging and really getting people to see accessory dwelling units for what they actually are.
yeah, definitely. All right,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you, Bobby.
Awesome. Great question. Thank you so much for participating and being here. So moving on, we have another question here from another resident that we've gotten. And they want to know, how can we make Elmsford a village that others want to live in and visit? How can we make it a destination and a home for others?
Maximizing our potential. Um, I don't think we fully realized it, and I think there are a few ways that we can do that. I think first we have to work to kind of revitalize um, Main Street in a way that businesses are able to stay. We've had a lot of businesses recently open, and I want to make sure that they are successful. Opening a small business is, I'm just going to come right out and say it, it's scary. It's scary. It's risky. It is bold. And it's oftentimes it's people literally living out a dream. So then the question needs to be asked, what are we doing to aid them in becoming more sustainable and successful over time? So I have mentioned this before to business owners. I want to establish a small business support program in addition to a small business council. The small business support program would really connect owners with training, with mentorship, with microloans. It would help them, setting up something with experts that they'll be able to ask questions to, clarify certain things. And I think that council of small businesses would really allow for them to collaboratively work together to ensure that they are all successful, while at the same time providing feedback in an organized way to the government to make sure that we're aware of certain things as well. So if, we know that a small business, had a rough, quarter, we can do things to drive business to, that business, to that restaurant or to that cleaners or whatever it is. We just have to make sure that there's an organized way to have that dialogue and support those. Something that my wife and I experienced when we first started dating, and I wrote it down in my phone, in a note. Keep in mind, Thatcher, this is a long note because whenever I go somewhere and I see a great idea that I want to bring home, I write it down. And it's an art walk. We have incredibly talented artists in this village, from youth to adults. If we are organizing an annual art walk where every business on Main Street is displaying a certain, art piece that someone drew or someone crafted, whether it's in the window or putting it in the restaurant, and we're organizing it where all of Main Street is literally an art gallery. That is how we're going to drive traffic, not only among residents, but among non-residents coming to see this. How can we not partner with other school districts within the town of Greenburgh and have their art also displayed in window shops here in Elmsford? That's how we do this. Why can't we have a street fair here in Elmsford, showcasing local talent, bringing visitors to the village? So that's one. The second thing is our public spaces. We have got to really do more in terms of community gardens. We have to do more in terms of farmers markets. These are things that we once had. Where'd they go? Why are they not here? And we need to be bold when it comes to public spaces. Thatcher, Governor Hochul, here in New York, came out with New York Bricks. And it is a grant program where you will be provided funding to build a community center in your community if you do not have one. Thatcher, I am pledging today that we will utilize the grant funding provided and outlined in Governor Hochul's State of the State address, and we will seek that funding to build a community center here in the village of Elmsford, because every member of this community deserves a space to be able to do these programs, to be able to draw people here and make them want to stay and develop here. So, and then third, we've got to celebrate our cultural diversity. Let me tell you something. I used to tell people all the time, I graduated from Alexander Hamilton High School, and that means I can pronounce more last names than anybody you know. And I will stand by that to this day, because I got not just an education that prepared me for the next stage, but I got an education in culture. I got an education in the importance of diversity. I got an education in the importance of learning about other cultures. We have got to celebrate that here. And we can definitely do more, hosting rotating festivals, and honoring all of the different cultures that exist within our community. So those are just a few ways that I really think that we can create a vibrant, more welcoming Elmsford that people really choose to visit and call home.
Thanks, Matt. Community is so important, and creating those spaces to have them, share in the community is so important as well. What is an example of a youth program that you'd like to start, maybe for this community, and what about like a program for seniors, and how can you provide these opportunities for the different kinds and variations of the community in this great village?
So I'm going to tackle those in two different ways. We're lucky enough in this campaign to have a group of about 5 high school students who have been volunteering on this campaign. They are the Matt Evans for Elmsford Male Youth Squad, and they have been out canvassing. They have been creating graphics, revising Canvas scripts. They have put in amazing work, and Thatcher, they sought us out. So we in this campaign are very passionate about giving the youth a voice. So what does that look like, and what does it look like in terms of programming? So one, we need a youth council and a youth advisory board to make sure that we are actually what we're doing is actually emblematic of what the youth need and what they want in our community. And I don't think it should just be symbolic. I think you need to give them actual real input on the things that are affecting them. We're going to develop an internship and apprentice program at Village Hall to really open careers in public service and really begin to expose, high school and college level students to potential paths that may be of interest to them. So whether it may be accounting, whether it is public administration, whether it is public office, whether, it's could be law enforcement, it could be the courts. There are so many ways in which if we open the doors of Village Hall to the youth, we can set them on a clear path to success. And this is what I mean by collective impact, Thatcher. I touched on it earlier. We've got to work with the school district, work with our local businesses, and as the village, be a conduit for all three so that we are serving the community as a whole. But above all else, we have to do something about out of school time programming. The school can't do it by themselves, Thatcher. They cannot do it by themselves. Because in fact, 80% of the time that a student spends is outside of the classroom. So if 80% of that time a student spends is outside of the classroom, what are we doing for them in that 80%? So many have said that I'm taking credit or something along those lines about saying that I have led the effort to establish a full recreation department. This is what I'm talking about. Right? Because what we just got done at our last board meeting is we got the job description for a superintendent of recreation approved. I ensured that there was funding in the last budget to be able to do that. Why? Because we have never had one, Thatcher. And you cannot build a recreation department that is serving the youth, the seniors, and the adult community unless there is someone in charge of that department with the qualifications, the background, and the knowledge to do so. So when we're talking about establishing, a youth program or recreation department, that's what it looks like. I honor the contributions of many who have put in the work to do a lot of good work when it comes to pushing our recreation department along. And now it's time to take that to the next level and again create a full department that is able to serve all of these different levels. In terms of our seniors, we do have a senior program now. I've been accused of voting against the senior budget. That never happened ever, because we don't vote on different budgets. There's no senior budget we vote on and public works budget we vote on. It's all one budget. So never actually voted against the senior budget. But I think it's important that we recognize the need to provide different avenues of engagement for our seniors. So whether that is classes in addition to social events, expanding on the guest lectures that also do come, but it's also about ensuring that everyone has equal access to attend these programs. So what can we do as a municipality to ensure that there's reliable, accessible transportation to our senior center and any other key destinations? We can't be prohibitive for only those who may have a way of traveling there themselves. If we're going to do programming like this, we have to meet our seniors where they are, and I want to make sure that there's equal access to that. I think offering digital classes to help really bridge technology gaps that many seniors do face is crucial. And one thing that I really do want to launch is something called Project Generation. I gave it that name. And it's really where seniors get to share their life experiences and oral histories with Elmsford students, really try and create intergenerational and meaningful connections between the two. Our seniors are full of knowledge. They are a wealth of experience, and there's a lot that we can learn from them. Why just read about, this war or that war in a textbook when we have a senior who can sit down and tell you their experience? And I think that's vital. So I think both programs can and will be properly funded and staffed. It won't be afterthoughts, so that our youngest and our eldest residents receive the same level of attention and care that we provide to everyone else.
Wonderful. Yeah, I can tell you that I experienced a similar program when I was going through high school, and it's very impactful and it's awesome to learn from those elders in your own community. Absolutely. So another question for you, Matt. Other municipalities have senior programs that are just for residents of their municipality. Why are Elmsford taxpayers subsidizing the senior programs for other people that live in White Plains or Terrytown or elsewhere? Is that happening, or what's going on there?
I mean, I think they've identified a valid concern. Um, I mean, I believe in being neighborly, but you know, they may have a point that Elmsford taxpayers really shouldn't bear a disproportionate burden for services primarily benefiting non-residents. So I think an approach to deal with this would be ensuring that there is a tiered structure for our senior programs, right? So Elmsford residents would pay, reduced rates compared to non-residents. And this is an approach that almost all municipalities near and far have. And I think that approach would be fair and would actually be sustainable. I think it would ensure that our taxpayers receive priority, but you're still allowing others to participate, if they are paying, the share that's been designated. So what I'm really hearing here though is an opportunity for partnership, right? So we've got to take these types of things and turn them into opportunities. And I think exploring those partnerships with neighboring municipalities that we could potentially then share costs in a more equitable way, potentially through whether it's an intermunicipal agreement or something along those lines, where each community contributes based upon their usage rates. Because if we're getting a high percentage, and I'm a big believer in data, Thatcher. So if we're looking at the data and we're seeing that over half of our participants are from White Plains, we'll say, that to me opens up the conversation for me to call up the mayor of White Plains, or even speak to the rec director of White Plains, who happens to be an Elmsford resident, and say, hey, we're seeing this number of White Plains residents that are coming to our programs. How can we work together to maybe offer them additional programming, and how can we partner with this? So if we really begin to at least take a look at this and kind of assess our senior program and its costs and its participation rates, and I think we can do that within my first 6 months in office, I want to make sure that we have accurate data to make those decisions. But I definitely think this is something that we can look at. And again, I don't look at this necessarily as a negative. I look at it as an opportunity.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Um, Moving on, understanding that and kind of touching on a little bit of what we discussed previously with the question from the audience. Understand that there's a big housing issue in the nation today. Many other villages and municipalities are looking into accessible dwelling units in an effort to create more housing opportunities. And what is there a reason why the village has not ventured into studying a program like that as of yet, and to see if it's viable?
Bellamy, was this your question? Um, yeah, I mean, look, I'll just expand upon the answer that I gave Bellamy. This is why I'm running with Latifah Castleberry, and why I'm running with Megan Rivera, who are going to be amazing partners, because I need like-minded people sitting on that board with me. I need people who are ambitious, who are ready to learn, who are ready to expand. And this is something that, I can confidently say they would be on board to study. And I think a formal ADU feasibility study, definitely within our first year, examining successful models from other municipalities, determining what would be best for Elmsford, really getting public input, taking Bellamy's expertise and helping the public truly understand what that would look like. So that would look, making sure we have public workshops, and even potentially creating a housing committee, and making sure that our approach is more proactive than reactive. We want to make sure that we're actually making forward-thinking solutions with the right information. But again, it is definitely something that I think we need to prioritize taking a look at as we move forward.
Absolutely. Let's see. We have another question here. I think you mentioned this a little bit earlier in our discussion. but it seems that other municipalities post their budget, their meeting minutes, and other public documentation on their website for available for the residents. But this resident here mentioned that the village website doesn't seem to have that information accessible to them. Why is this, and how are you going to make that happen in the future? I know you said that was a priority for you.
Thatcher, you're seeing a trend here with technology. So look, I actually authored the village law that, or the in the village code that requires board meetings to not only be live streamed but also be archived, because I believe in transparency, right? Like I think that's something that I want to make sure people understand here. You're never going to have to guess with me. I believe in giving the public more information, not less. I believe you need to see your public officials at work. I believe you need to be part of the process. I have nothing to hide, right? When you do everything above board, you want it out in the open because you want people to see the good things that you're doing, right? So I find, Gotcha, I find it unacceptable. I find it unacceptable, the lack of basic government information that we are offering. I do not think we have enough transparency. We are in the midst of redoing our website, our village website, but here would be my response to you, Thatcher. And you don't have to answer this, but I do not trust that that website, when it is new, will include more information, because no attempt has been made to actually increase the level of information available on the website in his 22 years. None. Where's the budget breakdown by department? Project expenses. Updated monthly. Nothing. What about a user-friendly, popular annual financial report summarizing our financial health? Can't find it. Meeting minutes. All the agendas. Supporting documents. Posted within 48 hours and easy to find. What about a searchable database of village codes and ordinance that's understandable to the average citizen? What about visualization tools for budgets and key statistics? It's not there, right? I'm guaranteeing within my first 100 days, you will begin to see progress in these areas. And I will ensure that we have specific staff responsible for certain website updates with clear accountability.
Great.
And again, I mentioned this before, my official calendar, visitor logs to Village Hall, anyone who's coming to meet, you will see who's coming to sit down and meet with me to make sure that I'm not meeting with the wrong people. And all of these expenses are going to be published online. You need to see how we're spending your money. Look, the technology is readily available, Thatcher. It's readily available, and at this rate, the technology I'm talking about is affordable. We're not looking to do something wild here. The only thing that's been missing is the political will to embrace transparency. We're going to change that immediately.
Thanks, Matt. You mentioned that you have previous professional experience with grants. This resident said that they are aware that they're a great way for municipalities to buy the equipment they need without raising taxes for municipalities, for their residents, and increasing those taxes on them. How would you handle these grant funding opportunities for the village?
Yeah. So grants are crucial, right? Just got done writing one 2 weeks ago. Still recovering from that, God love me. So unfortunately though, we haven't been aggressive enough in pursuing these grants, and all of the opportunities that come with them. So there is a way of actually implementing a great grant strategy. So let's first start with the fact that you've got to have a grants coordinator, right? So what we've got to remember about grants is that they in essence pay for themselves. Grant writers pay for themselves, right? So depending upon the amount of money they bring in, they're going to end up covering their own salary. And not enough has been done. There's been a lot of talk about, going in with other municipalities, with a grant writer. And I'm done talking about this. Let's stop talking and let's actually do something, right? I don't understand. I fail to understand how we have had a full-time mayor since 2018. And what do we have to show for it? Is there increased grant funding? Increased programming? Increased opportunities? The only thing that's increased is the salary. There have been zero increases in benefit to the taxpayers of this community by having a mayor become full-time. So if you're not writing grants to get us more funding, if you're not establishing, actual job descriptions, because mind you, Thatcher, we've got an entire staff that don't have job descriptions. There's no organizational chart. If it weren't for me bringing it up and literally working to lead the effort, we wouldn't have a new employee handbook. So if you're not doing that, and we don't have any real new programming, what are you doing all day? I don't know what you're doing all day. So beyond creating a grant coordinator and really working with other municipalities to make that happen, what I've done is you've got to create a grants calendar. So you've really got to create a calendar that's tracking federal, that's tracking state, county, private, foundation deadlines that are relevant to our needs and ensuring that we don't miss an opportunity. And then you've got to prioritize them. So I would say we would prioritize them based on infrastructure, public safety equipment, environmental projects, recreation programs. Now, I'm not saying that we haven't received any grants, but good Lord, Thatcher, there's way more grants out there than we're applying for. And not only do we need to go in to, finding the grant coordinator with these municipalities, but we need to do more joint grant applications, which factually score higher than individual requests. I would know this. So you've got to be strategic in how you're doing this, right? We've got to build those relationships with our state and federal representatives, of which I have very strong relationships with, which is going to help us be able to advocate for Elmsford's inclusion in these funding opportunities. Fourth, I would say we have to properly manage any grants that we receive, right? So you've got to have those regular progress reports to maintain our reputation as stewards of funding, because oftentimes these grants come out in cycles. So you've got to be able to track, you've got to be able to use that data to justify either a renewal of said grant or an application for a grant at the next level. So if you're not properly tracking the data, if you're not properly showing exactly what metrics you used to determine the success of the grant, the chances of you continuing to receive them decreases. So you have to know what in God's name you're doing in order to make sure that you're not just successful with one grant, but that you're successful with many. So I will scale these efforts, to really bring substantial outside funding in Elmsford and directly benefit residents without having to reach deep into their pockets.
Wonderful. And maybe even help the smaller businesses as we talked about previously.
1000%. There is grant funding out there for them as well, especially for those that are just starting. Even those that are oftentimes minority-owned businesses, there are opportunities there for them. And that's why I think having a grants coordinator isn't just about coordinating grants for, the village. It needs to be about helping coordinate grants for small businesses as well. This is about us making an investment in what we're able to do across the board. So yeah, Thatcher, that's absolutely it.
Sounds pretty good. I've heard and I've seen based on this question that came into us, that the village seems to be losing more of the mom and pop stores and seems to be more so home to dealerships and storage buildings. So what can you do and what are you going to do to address this inequity that exists in the village?
So we have seen an increase in big businesses coming in. Um, uh, Trustee Nelson Lopez and I really did, lead the way on ensuring that we first had a moratorium on storage units here in the village. And we rezoned exactly where those storage units could go. But Thatcher, I think that's part of the problem. I think when it comes to zoning, we are being more reactive than proactive. And I think we need to begin to review and modernize our zoning regulations. Like we need to have zoning that supports the businesses we want and doesn't just accept whatever comes along. Thatcher, there has not been a single comprehensive plan. There is no comprehensive plan that has been done in the 22 years of Mayor Williams' tenure. Not a single comprehensive plan has been done, which means we have nothing to be able to say, this is the type of community that we want. This is what we want Elmsford to look like. This is what we want Elmsford to feel like. So when these businesses are coming before us, we have no way of saying, hey, this doesn't exactly fit with what it is we're trying to do here. Here, take a look at our comprehensive plan and tell me where you see what you're trying to do fitting. So we've got to be able to take a look at that. And I think we also talked about that small business support program, which I think would be huge. I want to make sure that these new businesses that are coming in are successful, right? People are trying to live a dream. And I want to make sure that their dream is a reality. Everyone in this community is going to thrive if our small businesses thrive. Small businesses are the tool and the engine to economic success in this country. And I do not want a single small business to feel as if they were not adequately supported by the community that exists around them. And that's why that small business support program is so crucial. And honestly, I really do believe that weekly farmers market thing, I'm not kidding, really is very key to local small businesses because you're talking about local vendors. You're talking about creating foot traffic that benefits those surrounding businesses. So we can do a weekly farmers market during the summer and the fall, and then we can do an indoor winter farmers market as well. Utilizing, the public spaces that we have. We don't have to just, you know, throw in the towel just because the weather is cold. No, let's do something else that, will still continue to bring about, that foot traffic. So transformation won't happen overnight. But I really think with attention and the right policies, we can create that environment where small businesses choose Elmsford and then succeed here.
Awesome. Yeah, as a urban planner myself in my hometown, I can tell you that a vision is vital, absolutely. So, how do you plan to help the fire, EMS, and police departments? What are your visions and plans for community policing, and how do you plan to incorporate that into your tenure if you're elected?
Yeah. So let me handle I'm going to handle the police department first and then make my way to our EMS programming and our fire department. The first way that I'm going to ensure that I'm supporting our police department is by letting the commissioner do his job. Um, I am not a police constable. I don't intend to be a police constable because I believe that would be a conflict. Um, the board technically oversees it, and you can't be your own boss. The current mayor has remained a police constable when in actuality he shouldn't be. Can't be your own boss. Not how that works. Also, mind you, Thatcher, there is no such thing as a chief of the constables. The mayor calls himself chief of constables. That is not a real thing. He created that on his own. That does not exist. So, again, another example of just lawlessness and a complete disregard for rules, regulations, and laws. But that is a pattern that we consistently see. So, look, our police department has done an admirable, admirable job in really emphasizing building relationships through youth engagement, through really becoming a steward of our community. The relationship that our public has with our law enforcement personnel is A1, and I applaud them for that. My question is, how do we support them more, right? And I think the way in which we do that, and I've met with the leadership of our PBA and express this directly to them that you know we have to make sure that we're doing these community events and that we're supporting them. For example, working with our fire department, our police department to do whether it's a charity softball game or it could be a wing eating contest. Thatcher, I know you wanted to come up for election day. You got to try the wings at Pete's. Quite delicious. So utilizing something like that, as a wing eating contest, we're killing two birds with one stone. We're doing community event where you know frequenting a small business while at the same time we're building relationships. It all works. So really, that is really how I believe that we can continue to support them. Something that I have pushed hard for, in terms of ensuring that it was in the budget. And again, Trustee Nelson Lopez has supported me on this, as have other board members as well. Ensuring that our police officers have body cameras. We're still working diligently. In that last budget, we did secure the funding for it, and we're just trying to close that gap. To make sure that we can get them the protection that they need. In terms of supporting our fire department EMS with recruitment, we just recently, working with our Nob Hill condominiums, our complex here in Elmsford, reduced rates for rent for our first responders, because part of what we heard was they want to be able to stay in the village and contribute to the community, but it was becoming difficult for them to do so. So I really want to make sure that we're able to address that, and we have begun to take steps to do that. What I have begun to work to build the framework of is a working group that brings together different sectors of the community to really begin to examine ways in which we can effectively recruit, for our fire department and EMS. So it is my hope, that once we're in office, we're able to really accelerate those efforts, and really begin to get that moving. But those are some ways in which we can support our first responders here in Elmsford.
Fantastic. And yes, I do and look forward to taking you up on trying those wings. So
Gotta
that's
do
awesome.
it. I can't wait. You gotta do it.
So we keep hearing the excuses about flooding that's happening in Elmsford. What are you going to do to address that problem, flooding? Because it's not going to get any better anytime soon, I imagine.
So I want Elmsford residents to hear me on this, because this isn't just a concept that I know about in Elmsford. It's something I've lived. There was a flood, it was 99 or 2000, and family memories destroyed. Our basement was completely flooded out. I'll never forget the image of seeing the refrigerator that was in the basement just floating down the street. And I give so much credit to Elmsford residents, because and I'm going to say we have heard promises after promises after promises about the Sawmill River flooding with little to show for it. Little to show for it. And I have been on the other end of seeing the same cycle of words without action. And I'm just as tired of it as they are. So yeah, I would argue we actually do have a plan. And I'm going to tell you what the plan really begins with. This may not be a popular thing to say, but I don't think I'm really known for saying things to make sure that they're popular. I'm done studying, Thatcher. I'm done studying. I'm done waiting for permission from the state. I'm done. Enough. We're gonna establish a task force that's not another committee that studies. It's gonna be action oriented. There's gonna be specific deadlines. We're gonna have deliverables. And damn it, I'll personally oversee it myself. I'm going to redirect our existing resources to implement a regular maintenance schedule for clearing that debris and the vegetation from critical sections of the river. There's no more waiting for studies. There's no more waiting for outside approval. We're going to start with what we can control right now. I'm honored to be running with Megan Rivera. This is her wheelhouse. We're talking about a woman who puts her waders on and gets in that Sawmill River hip deep to clean it out. And I have no doubt that as a trustee, she's going to continue to do the exact same thing. And we've got to get on that regular schedule because that in and of itself, and we've already seen the studies. See, the reason why I'm saying this is because we already know that it's a solution. I am in possession of Thatcher, three reports about the Sawmill River. Three. All done at different intervals, all saying the same thing. All saying the same thing. And we're not doing it. For what? Because the state said no? Let me tell you something, Thatcher. We're going to clean it. And I want somebody from Albany to come down here and try tapping us on the wrist. I dare them. Because they have done nothing. Nothing. While the residents of this community have been harmed over and over and over again. And that's what we're waiting for? For the state to go. No one's coming on a white horse to come help us. We're going to have to do it ourselves. We already know the solutions. So let's start with that. Secondly, I am not going to let up on our county, our state, and our federal officials. I'm not just submitting applications. I'll go to White Plains myself. I'll go to Albany myself. I'll go to DC myself, and I'll stand there until we get the funding that we need to do what we need to do. Enough of talking about this. We have not been aggressive enough in making sure that we address this issue. Again, we know the solutions. So why are we just sitting by waiting for somebody to give us thumbs up? Enough. Enough. I think we really need to make sure that we are updating our flood response protocols. Right? We know that we need to have certain responses in place. I think we need to take a look at those. I think we need real-time alert system for residents. Let's start leveraging technology. There's that word again. Leveraging technology that we already have access to through the county. So why are we not utilizing it? Right? So we've got to start really actually addressing this issue. So I am confident that by the end of my first year in office, we will have concrete, visible progress to be able to report not just plans, not another study. I'm over it. And we've got to start holding quarterly meetings specifically about flood mitigation. We've got to give more information to the progress to the community about our progress. And we're going to report exactly what's been accomplished and what's next. I know they've heard promises before. I do. So I would not blame them listening to me right now and just going, yeah, here's just another line that we're being fed. Here's the difference. I've been impacted too. I have baby pictures that I'll never see again of me, of my parents, of my grandparents that are just gone, family heirlooms that are gone. I know the impact of this. I watched my family try and scrape everything back together. I know what that's like. So my family faces the same threats that yours does. So my commitment to this isn't just professional, and God knows it's not political, it's personal. And I won't be satisfied with reports and studies while our basement's filled with water. So what I'll say is judge me by my actions, not my words. And if I don't deliver progress in my first year, hold me accountable in the next election. Hold me accountable. See, that's the kind of accountability that's been missing, right? That's the accountability that's been missing because it has been 22 years of no opposition. And if you think, Thatcher, for a minute, that we went 22 years with no opposition because everyone's just been happy-go-lucky, that's not the case. People have gone 22 years with no opposition because many were fearful. They were outright fearful. So Thatcher, here's how I want to close, if you wouldn't mind. I want to speak directly to the people of Elmsford to tell them this. If you believe that Elmsford can be better than this is your campaign. If you believe that our small businesses deserve more support, this is your campaign. If you see the children in your family and families around you not having the services and programs that they need, this is your campaign. If you are looking around you and saying, I want more for my mother as she is aging, this is your campaign. If you want outside of the box thinking, this is your campaign. Thatcher, my opponent has no plans. He has no plans for the future. None whatsoever. He's been quoted as saying that if he wins re-election, he'll start coming back to work again. We should have been there now. We should be there every single day. Thatcher, 22 years in office, that's enough. And and if you haven't accomplished what you sought to accomplish in 22 years, I would almost guarantee you ain't getting it done in 4 more. It's time for generational change in this community. It's time for Elmsford not to go left or go right. It's time for Elmsford to go forward. And it is time for us to take a stand and say, we will not be left behind. We are going to be part of leading the way. And that progress and that process begins on March 18th.
Fantastic. Great message, Matt. Thank you so much. You know, I can tell you're very passionate about all these issues, and I'm sure we could go on for another hour or two, but
No, I got
ties into the schedule.
no, Thatcher, I got steak tacos downstairs. No.
Absolutely. So, you know, I really appreciate your enthusiasm, and I wish you luck.
This is home, Thatcher. This is home. I wouldn't, I'm gonna try not to get emotional. I wouldn't want to be doing this anywhere else. I am who I am today because of this community. They have given me opportunities that I would have never dreamed of. And this is really just an opportunity to help them see their full potential and get us to achieve it because we deserve it. We deserve it. And as God is my witness, I will put every fiber of my being with every ounce of who I am into making sure people see us for who and what we truly are. I wouldn't want to be doing this anywhere else.
Amazing. Well, I'd just like to thank all the residents that came out tonight and participated. Thank you all for being here. And you know, if we didn't get to any questions that you might have had, hopefully we get to do this again soon, Matt.
I'm gonna get the questions from you, Thatcher, and whatever's left, if there are any left, I'll hop on an Instagram live this week and answer the rest of them. So just
Sounds great.
send those on over.
Will do.
Awesome. All right. Thank you all for joining us. Have a good night.
Good night.